Alright, Astro subscribers, welcome back to the second to last video in the Rahu and Ketu series. And today we are going to be doing a video on the topic of Rahu in Aquarius and Ketu, or the South Node, in Leo. And as always, got to do this introduction. What are Rahu and Ketu? Rahu and Ketu are the north and south node of the moon, and they are related to your past life karmas and the results of your capabilities, basically. Now, in the Vedic system, where these things are called Rahu and Ketu, reincarnation is a big part of that system. So, the idea of the area that you mastered or came closest to mastering in your last life, this is represented by Ketu, and as a result of you mastering or getting close to mastering this topic, you are naturally disinterested or blind to that topic in this life, which is why Ketu is represented as a body with no head. It represents embodied mastery and lack of attention. Like, literally, when people bring up the area of Ketu that Ketu represents in your chart, people have a tendency to change the subject, to avert their gaze unconsciously, to have their eyes glaze over. So if you really want to annoy somebody, you could find out where their Ketu is and then just only bring up that topic. And unless they have a placement like Mars Ketu or Jupiter Ketu, they will often be irritated with you and not really be able to explain why. Like, they'll have a natural aversion to that subject. Rahu is the opposite of that. It is the area which is always opposite Ketu, where you did not master it in your last life, or maybe you were neglectful of it in your last life, and as a result of that, you have an anxious compulsion to seek that thing out, and also to take shortcuts in your attainment of that thing. So there's kind of a desperation involved with Rahu. And Rahu is also, it's often described as kind of an immoral entity. However, you have to understand that immorality and desperation, it's more of a desperate entity, meaning that it wants what it wants now, because it feels like if it doesn't get it now, it might never have it. So you could think of this like a really hungry person. A really hungry person is not going to wait if they see food, even if the food belongs to somebody else. They're going to take what they can when they can, because they're desperate. So Rahu, you can think of it as a starving person who is constantly ingesting the material that it is placed in. So, like, if Rahu, for instance, is in Scorpio, these people are going to be constantly ingesting occult information, conspiracy type stuff, hidden stuff. If Rahu is in, let's say, Sagittarius, these people are constantly going to be desperately ingesting religious material, philosophical material, like university education, that kind of thing, etc. So, Rahu and Aquarius. Alright, so what is the sign of Aquarius? Well, I've talked about this in previous videos. The sign of Aquarius represents, above all, mass group communication. It also represents science. It represents the act of making a system which is functioning better. It is a sign of social reform, social revolution, scientific revolution, political revolution, usually with the intended purpose of making that system function better, although the dark side of Aquarius comes from unintended consequences. So, for instance, you could have a revolution which ends you exactly back where you started, or in a worse position than when you started. Revolution doesn't always have to be good. Aquarius is also the sign of gains and reputation, because it is second from Capricorn. And if you take into account, like, let's say second from Aries, second from the first sign is Taurus, which is gains of self, literally meaning the food and things that you consume becomes you. It becomes gains of your body. Second from anything represents gains of that thing. So, for instance, second from Capricorn is the gains of Capricorn. If Capricorn is your reputation and your work ethic, Aquarius represents gains of reputation and work ethic. So that's what Aquarius is. It can be seen as the behind-the-scenes achievements. So in contrast with Leo, which is its opposite, Aquarius is, like if Leo is the center stage, Aquarius is the technicians and people working behind the scenes to make sure that that stage is well lit, that the sound is working correctly, that everything is functioning. Aquarius is also represents PR, personal relations people, like a go-between between a king and a let's say a celebrity and their public. And it also represents image consultants, like people who can advise celebrities and who can advise politicians and all these things that Leo represents to sort of behind the scenes create the image that is portrayed. So, and through this they can achieve social reform by advising politicians behind the scenes. Even though they might never get credit for this, they are still ultimately the ones pushing the agenda because they are advising the king or the politician or the celebrity or the musician or all these things that Leo represents. So you could think of this as a behind-the-scenes management type person who nonetheless is very complicit in how society functions. So, So when Rahu enters the sign of Aquarius, what you tend to see is somebody who is obsessive about all those things that I just mentioned. They are a person who is very interested in covertly or let's say indirectly advancing the causes of society via some sort of social revolution or reform. You can see people like Elon Musk, who is, just working nonstop at creating these new technologies that are ultimately going to change the way we all interface with reality. You can see a Nikola Tesla type person with this as well. Somebody who is, really, really interested in, and obviously these are extreme examples. Obviously not everybody with this placement is going to be like an Elon Musk or a Nikola Tesla, but these are just hyperbolic examples to prove the point. People who are interested in science, people who are interested in social revolution, people who are interested in social reform, but aren't necessarily interested in the credit or the fame or the being in the spotlight. These are people who are content to work on society behind the scenes, and if they happen to get that credit or that achievement, they don't really find it suitable for them, because perhaps if you believe in past lives, in their past life they were a person who was like very much in the spotlight but feel like they didn't contribute. Like it's possible to spend your whole life in the spotlight and not really feel like you changed very much. Like you may have provided an aesthetic for people to mirror and but you feel like maybe you could have done more. So there's an extent to which being in the spotlight, being in center stage, can actually hinder your ability to change society, to focus on social issues, to actually change the world. And that's what Aquarius is really interested in, is changing the world. So whereas Leo is primarily interested in their personal self-image as an archetype. So these people tend to be selfless. They tend to, or rather, their self tends to be invested in the work that they do, rather than in their own personal grandiosity. So in a way, this can be good. They tend to shy away from the spotlight. They tend to just focus on working behind the scenes and creating the future. And you can maybe see their name in the footnote of after the change has already happened. You might not even know that this person was responsible for changing things, but when you actually dig into the details, it's like, man, when did this massive change ever come about? You will see this person there. They're just not interested in being necessarily in the spotlight, or taking credit for their achievements, but they might achieve more than somebody in the spotlight. So anyway, that was my analysis of North Node in the sign of Aquarius and South Node in the sign of Leo. Questions, comments, concerns are always welcome in the comments. Drop a sub if you want. And the next and last video in this series is going to be North Node in Pisces and South Node in Virgo. And since we are coming up on the end of this series, if you would like to drop a comment as well to say what you want the next series to be, I will definitely take that into consideration when I'm thinking about what series I'm going to do next. So hit me up on that as well. And yeah, see you next time.